Um, Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Shvis, Pedig Tes, Halacha Beis. We're going to be learning today Daf Ayin Gimel, and we left off on Daf Ayin Gimel, 2 lines from the top of the Amid, in middle of the Mishnah. We're going to begin with explaining, with quoting the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, but we have to, for that, quickly review the rule of the Mishnah and the opinion of the Tanakhama. So the Mishnah says that there are 3 lands, shalosh arotzois, as far as the din of beer is concerned. The pshat is that even the harvest that one made from Perei Shvius that was done in a permissible way, that product may only be eaten if it is also available at that time out there in the field for the non-domesticated animals. So whatever item I picked a little bit for my house. If that item is still out there also available, even for the wild animals, then that which I picked, I'm allowed to eat. Once it's no longer available to the chayas, to the non-domesticated animals out there, then I'm obligated to do biur. We're going to translate the word biur as removal. And one more time, machloikis Rambam and Ramban. Rambam says biur means literally you have to destroy it. When the time of biur comes, even though you can eat 3 meals from what you have, you can also give to all of your friends for them to have mazain for 3 meals. Anything beyond that has to be destroyed. That Ramban says that you only have to remove it and declare it hefker. But after you declare it ownerless, you can repossess it. Whichever way we're going to learn, the Mishnah says that there are 3 lands for beer, which means that it's not pshat. Let's say I picked wheat. It's not pshat that if there is wheat anywhere in the Holy Land, then the time of beer did not yet arrive because it's out there in the wild. No, that you divide the Holy Land into 3 general lands, and that will be the Golil, Yehuda, and the Evar LaYarden. It's amazing how, according to this, the Yehuda will include also the Negev. And if I'm living in Yehuda, so then if I took wheat, I can only eat wheat if wheat is available somewhere in the territory of Yehuda. If there's wheat available in the Galil, doesn't help me, etc. But then the Mishnah said that every one of these 3 lands is also divided into 3 sub-lands. And basically, each one of them has the highlands and the lowlands and the valley. And the Mishnah then gave the boundaries of some of these. Now the question is, the Mishnah ultimately gave 9, right? 3 lands. Each one of them has 3 sub-lands. So how do we apply this concerning the dinim of beer? Says the Tanakama, we learned the Tanakama, the way the Pnei Moshe explains it, which is really in the Bavli, it's a Machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. We are following the opinion of Rashi, that even though the Mishnah mentioned 3 sub-lands in each one of the Shalosh Harotzos, quoting the words in the Pnei Moshe, they were only mentioned le'ingen hagvul. That we want to know their boundaries. So when you want to give the boundaries, let's say of the Golul, well, so you have to speak about the higher Golul and the lower Golul, and then the Emek in the Golul, which is right on the north of the Kinetis, as we learned in the Mishnah. But that's only le'ingen hagvul. Concerning the din of biur, there are 3 lands. If I live anywhere in Yehuda, anywhere in the Golul, whether I live in the Golul Ha'elyon, whether I live in the Golul Ha'tachten, if there's anything of this product that I want to eat anywhere in the Golul, I don't have to yet remove it from my house. That is the way we are learning Pshat in the Tanakhama. And now we're going to take off. We're going to pick up today in learning the Shita of Rab Shimon. And just to be consistent, as we learned Da'as Tanakhama according to the Pnei Moshe, we're going to continuously today learn our sugya according to the Pnei Moshe, which again, for the record, is the Shita of Rashi, in the Bavli. Now, the Gemara will begin by giving us the source of this rule of biur. And as we mentioned in the Mishnah, that animals by nature do not normally venture out of the area that they were born in. And therefore, the logic of if it's available somewhere in Yehuda and I live in Yehuda, I can eat it. If it's available somewhere in the Golul and I live in Yehuda, Not good that it's out there in the Golol. It doesn't help me. That's predicated on the fact that the nature of a behema is not to go look for wheat in the Golol. Now, the Mishnah Taka gave two exceptions, but those are exceptions. So we're going to learn more details about this phenomena, beteva, of behemoths. We're going to speak a little bit about our animal soul as we get into the class, and it's going to be a very interesting daf today. It's going to be relatively easy. We're going to have many more details that we're going to learn in a brisa, and then the Gemara will expound these various brisas regarding different regions in Eretz Yisrael. We're going to learn a little bit about Har HaMelech. B'chlal, there is a region, let's call this in the Judean hills that surround Yerushalmi that are very mountainous. And amongst the mountains, now this region goes all the way to the Negev, the way it's being viewed by Chazal. So Yerushalmi is Ke'ilu surrounded by many, many mountains. And the tallest of all of these mountains, that's the mountain that's called Har HaMelech. We're going to get more into that when we learn today's daf. We're going to learn a brisa that gives you a big klal that shvela shebahar, kahar, har shebeshvela, kishvela. In other words, as we will see throughout today's daf, every one of the three aratzos is divided into three types of topographies: highlands, lowlands, valleys. That's the way Hashem made the world. And when you are in an area of the highlands, even if exactly where you're standing, there is a descent. And if you're measuring how high up am I from sea level, happens to be that you happen to be in a very close place to the sea level. That's called a shvela shebahar. If it's in the region of highlands, it will still have the category of highlands. Now again, l'may nafkamina, according to the Tanakama, according to Rashi, not for the dinam of biur, but for many other halachis, one of which will be mentioned in the Gemara. It's important to know whether you are in the highlands, whether you are in the lowlands, and it's going to be this will be the content of today's daf. So again, we are up to daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. Tanakama says that even though the Mishnah gave us three sublands in each one of the lands, it only means clearly that the Mishnah is giving you the gvul. So in order to give you the boundaries, let's say of the Golol, which is the first example the Mishnah gave, so the Mishnah breaks it down. There's the Golol HaElyon, there's the Golol HaTachton, but when you get dinim of biur, Golol is one of the lands. Anywhere in Golol that you find yourself, if that product that you want to eat is found in any other of the three sublands, not in your subland, in another subland, you don't have to do biur. That is the sheet of the Tanakama. 2 lines from the top of the Amud. However, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. Rab Shimon Omer, I disagree with the Tanakama in 2 points. And he says that Lo Amru Shalosh Aratzois Ela BiYehuda. Usha'ar Kol Ha'aratzois Kahar HaMelech. Now what this means, so according to the way we learn Pshat in the Tanakama, accordingly, we're going to learn Pshat in Rab Shimon. And we're going to read the Pnei Moshe. Pnei Moshe is 3 lines before the bottom of the narrow lines. Right? Lo Amru Shalosh Aratzois Ela BiYehuda. So says the Pnei Moshe that Rab Shimon Palig Betarta Atanakama. He's disagreeing with the Tanakama in 2 cases. Number 1, the Tanakama Savar, the Oisam Gimel Al Ratzois, Shebachol Achas V'Achas, that even though the Mishnah Take gave for every one of the lands 3 sublands, as we explained the Shita in the Tanakama, Loi Le'inyan Chiluk Hadin Amru. We are not saying it regarding the din of our Mishnah, which is the din of biur. We are not saying that if I'm in the Galil HaElyon and I have wheat, I'm only allowed to eat wheat if wheat is found out there in the Galil HaElyon. We're not saying that. If I'm in the Galil HaElyon and there is no wheat in the Galil HaElyon for the animals, for the chayas, so what? If there is wheat in the Galil HaTachton, that's also good. I don't have to do biur. Elo le'inyan hagvul. The Mishnah wants to tell you the boundaries of Galul. So once we're speaking about the boundaries, de facto, there's up highlands and there's lowlands. So it's describing the topography in order to come to our Mishnah, to the din, that there is one eretz called Galul. Now, for that, Valzeh, right, the second line under the Gemara in the Pnei Moshe, Palig Vika Amar, Rab Shimon says, no. The BiYehuda Gimel Aratzois Hein Le'inyan Hadin. So Yehuda's 3 sublands are divided one from the other. They're not Yehuda. So if I'm living in the Har in Yehuda and there's no more wheat in the Har, it doesn't help me that there's wheat in the Shvela in Yehuda. Won't help me. In other words, the three sublands of Yehuda, each one in itself, has to be viewed as its own territory concerning the din of biur. Number one. Number two. Regarding the other rule of the Tanakama, which says, yeah, there aren't 9 lands, but there are 3 lands. And if you're living in Yehuda, doesn't help that the food is in the Galil. Or if you're in the Galil, that there's food in Eber LaYarden. And on that, again, Palig v'Ka'amad, we're continuing in the Pnei Moshe to point out the second disagreement that Rab Shimon has with the Tanakama, the Sha'ar kol arotzois kahara melech. If you take Yehuda out, all other parts of the Holy Land, if there is a product, Dafayin Gimel, and you want to know whether the time of Biur came for that product, you can always look to Har HaMelech. And generally, all items in the wild had the longest shelf life. It was there on Har HaMelech longer than in any other location. So it's amazing how, again, Yehuda is divided into 3 sublands. Outside of Yehuda, all we have to look at is Har HaMelech. Why Har HaMelech? Because b'metzius, any item, even when it's no longer available in the fields around where I live, or here or there, it might still be available on Har HaMelech. So when does the time of Biur come? If I'm not living in Yehuda, is it available in Har HaMelech? Predicated, I'm going to add a little...
Does that mean there's like 4 areas, so to speak?
Very
in a
good.
way?
Very good. That means that very good. 4 areas.
So there's the 3 of
Yehuda, and the rest of Israel. That's 4. Very good.
And within Yehuda, each one is distinct. So if it's done in one area, but it is in another area,
correct,
you can no longer eat it.
Correct. Be clear. And Yehuda has what the Mishnah calls the mountain, Hahar, the highlands, Shvela is lowlands, and Emek is the valley. Very good. And again, I want to point out, there's some beautiful maps that I'm going to ask to bring out in the end, whoever's using an art scroll, all the way at the bottom, not now. Beautiful colored maps. Okay, that's a great colored map. I just want to point out that what everyone is talking about now that the map is up, and if you're listening online, it doesn't matter. The challenge that everyone has is that whichever way you learn Pshat in the Mishnah, like Rashi, like Tosfos, like the Tanakama, like Rab Shimon, the Mishnah is speaking about Yehuda Galil. Think about, we know Eretz Yisrael to some degree. Oila Bavel, their footprint was much bigger where in Tavshin Pei, a moment before Mashiach, where Eretz Yisrael now is very small. Okay, fine. So we include Ever LaYarden, which is now Jordan, a big part of it. But what happened to the Negev? That's the whole issue over here. And again, I'm just going to say that if you're looking at the zoom and you're looking at a colored picture, it must be either that in the times of Chazal, because of the fact that the Negev is desert, there was basically nothing available out there. Nothing was planted there. That's one approach. Or for the dinim of our Mishnah, we consider Negev as part of Yehuda. Just putting it out there. That's a big discussion that is had over here. Okay. Now, the final ruling in the Mishnah, and I know we spoke it out on the intro, but now we're finally reading it. This is Mamish Gavaldik. According to everyone, the entirety of Eretz Yisrael, which includes Ever LaYarden, is considered one country as far as Zaysim and Tamarim are concerned. Amazing. So when it comes to either olives or dates, like we mentioned, even though it's according to the Tanakama, and to some degree according to Rab Shimon, the general nature of an animal is that an animal has its own boundaries. We're talking about wild animals, chayas, and they go up until a certain point, and they don't go farther. They don't go outside of their natural habitat. That's generally. But if something is really, really motivating them, and when that will be both zaysim and tamarim, olives and or dates, that's a worth it for them. So the point is, if I'm living in the Golul and there are dates be'ever layarden, the chayis in the Golul will go there to get dates. So it's still available for the chayis ba'artzecha. And that's why for there, you don't divide it into not 9 sublands, not even to 3 sublands. There's one holy land. There's one God, there's one Jewish people, there's one land. The land, Eretz Yisrael. But for what? And that's, I think, extremely significant. Al Pi Chasidus. We'll speak a little bit more about it when we open up this Gemara. About acknowledging that even our animal has boundaries. Can say that I heard this from the Rebbe, that we say in the Al-Chaitz, one of the many Al-Chaitz, then is Al-Chait, this is a classic question. So the kasha is, Al-Chait, what do you mean? Every sin is done with the Yetzer Hara. What's behind the sin? The Yetzer Hara. What do you mean? Al-Chait, that I sinned with you. So the Rebbe said, he was quoting someone, that even my Yetzer Hara, everyone's Yetzer Hara has certain boundaries. There are certain things that naturally I have to struggle with, and there are certain things that by nature I don't even want. And sometimes a person can open up an appetite that they are introducing to the Yetzer Hara. That means you're pushing the boundaries that like completely crazy, completely self-destructive. Why would you do that? You didn't even want to do that. Now you're developing a desire to do it. That's the pshat, that even a behema has boundaries. But if there's olives and dates, in other words, but there are certain things that can attract you to go outside your boundary. Okay, more about that soon. Let's go right. So first of all, this whole thing is based, this whole concept of beer, and why are we dividing Eretz Yisrael aside for olives and dates, for Zeisem and Tamarim? Why are we dividing it into 3 lands, or according to Tosfos, according to the Tanakama, mamish 9 sublands? That pasuk that we keep on reading, when it says in Parshas Bahar, and you can read the whole pasuk in the Torah Ohr HaSholem. In other words, the produce that grows, you can't plant it, but that which grows on the 7th year is for your behemoths and for your chayas. It's amazing. Behemoths means domesticated animals. In this context, behemoths includes me, you. In other words, when can the behemoths eat? When can those who are domesticated eat? People and animals that are domesticated, if the same item is also available to the chayas, to the non-domesticated. So Chazal tell us, if the chaya can find it because it's there, it's available. It wasn't completely consumed. It wasn't frozen up with the winter. So then, habehema ichelas min habayis, and as we'll see, habehema doesn't only mean the behema. We're learning from the behema and chayas to what a human being can eat. However, kol lachayim and asadeh, kol lebemtach min habayis. I want to tell you, it's not so unsimilar to a general rule. I know that many people here, they have pets, animal pets, and to remember the simple rule that a yid is not allowed to eat a meal prior to feeding their animal. There's a similarity over here. Al pi din is if I have an animal, now I don't know how it works. I don't know if they have the same schedule that we eat, but if we're both hungry, I'm not allowed to eat prior to feeding my animal. This is similar. I cannot eat it if the animal doesn't have it. Okay. Says the Gemara, Rab Chama bar Ukva, the Shem Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina, Shi'aru loimer. The Chachamim made the following hashara. They made the following estimation that what? They made the following judgment that ein hachaya shebahar gedela ba'emek, that the beast mountains they don't go into the valley. One doesn't go into the territory of the other. Now, who does that sound like? Look inside the second widest line in the Pnei Moshe. Shiyaru loimer ein chay shavahar v'chuli. Don't forget, we are learning the Mishnah kishitas Rashi. So now you have to explain what that means. That Rabbi Yosi b'Rab Chanina mefarish laho the mechalik l'sholish arotzos b'chol achas ve'achas Mishum the shi'aru loimer the ein chaya shebahar misgadelas ma'asher be'emek v'chein ipka she'ein misgadelas el b'makoim sheregilo hi. And even if it ventures out, it's going to come back to its place, as we'll have a story in the Gemara in a moment. Now, I want to tell you that this does not fit the understanding of Rashi in our Tanakama. This does fit the understanding that I already implied that Tosfos says in Bavli in the Tanakama, the opposite of the way Pnei Moshe says, that actually there are 9 sub-lands. That even if you're in the Golul, if you're living in the Golul HaElyon, and the product is Begolul HaTachton, you can't eat it anymore. Biur. Because of this nature. Like it's mamash at kedei kach, that if you're living in the highlands, animals in the highlands don't go down to the lowlands. And if they go there, they come back.
Question, Rabbi. How did we transition from humans to animals and their borders? I understand you said we're like pets, whatever, but suddenly we went from
like pets. You can't.
No,
I didn't say that.
No, I mean we're.
The Chazal understood that when the Torah was speaking about behemoths eating in the home, they meant behemoths and people.
Okay, but how did we transition to domesticated versus non-domesticated suddenly? What they eat?
No. It's domesticated animals are animals that are that I have to feed. They're eating.
No, I get that. I'm saying, how did we get into their boundaries suddenly? Why do we care what their boundaries and if they go up and down?
The Torah is saying that the only time, the Torah speaks about beer. The Torah mentions that there is a certain point in which I have to get rid of my produce. When that item is not available to the chayas.
Okay.
That's the meaning of this pas.
I missed that, sorry.
And now says the Gemara, no, according to this understanding, according to his understanding, listen, there's no machlokes and metzias. He's more tzaddik-like. This is a person that barely sins. If the issue is not completely natural to you, you're not gonna go there to do it. So therefore, Israel, according to his understanding, he's really saying that it's 9 sublands. Even from the mountain to the valley, to highlands, to lowlands, lowlands to the valley, animals don't go one place to the other. And for that, the Gemara brings a story. So we have these Roman names. Dik, Lik, Janus. Dik Lit Janus, he was a bad emperor. And Aik Libnei Panyas, he oppressed the Yidden that lived in Panyas and Banyas. We had that before. So we know where that is. Many people go there today, right? It's somewhere in the north. Where's Edo, right? I think it's in the Galil HaElyon, the way the modern state today divided the land, or labeled the land. It was so bad for Yidden to live there that they told him that Anan Oslin, we're going. We're leaving. It's unbearable. So Amalei Soifista, so the advisor of the king told the king that Lo Oslan line, they won't go. Don't be afraid. Don't let up your decrees. Continue oppressing them. First of all, they won't leave. And number 2, V'i Aslan line, even if they're going to go, they're going to come back. Chazran line. And I'll prove it to you. V'i Bo'is Mivtakam. If you want me to show you that people are so bound to their natural habitat that it takes a lot more than you think to uproot them and make them go, he says, Aiti Tavyon. Tavya is a deer. Bring a deer. Send the deer to a faraway land. And you'll see that they'll come back. The deers will come back. Because you want to go back to your natural land. And the king experimented with that. Ovid came. Asian Tavion, he brought a deer. And what did he do? What was that? And to be able to identify the deer later. So these deers, have these beautiful horns, whatever they're called. There's a better name for them. Antlers. So he took one deer and he coated the antlers with silver. So later you can find the deer with the silver antlers. And Vishalchen La'Afrikin, he sent it to Africa. And what's amazing is that this story is also brought down in the Medrash. And look inside the Rashi Ilyo, a couple of lines before the bottom of the left column, that in the Medrash it says, not to any land in Africa. We had this a few daf ago in this Masechta, that there are certain countries in Africa that the physical topography of the land is very similar to Eretz Yisrael. I think it was to the Bnei Ches, right? One of the 7 nations that left the land on their own when Yeshua sent them the letters. So God rewarded them that He moved them to a place that it should feel similar to. That as we had, in other words, He sent the deer to a place that was very similar physically to Eretz Yisrael. The weather was the same, the topography was the same, it was the same. And not only that, the deer was trapped there on purpose for 13 years. You would think after 13 years, the deer who was for those years unable to go back, the deer would not want to go back. It would forget of its old home. It would fully adapt to its new environment. Nevertheless, after 13 years, when they released, that's the way the Medrash says, or what the Ramban says that in the Medrash, when they released the deer, it's in the plural, these deers with the silver horns, they returned back to Eretz Yisrael. It's amazing how this terrible advisor, evil of this sophista, right, the Sufis, that this guy, maybe that's the origin of that, I don't know, sophista here gave him, in other words, he was telling the Roman emperor, you don't have to have Rachmanas on the Yidden. You can oppress them, and they're not going to leave Israel. Don't, and leaving Israel was a threat because they would, a person's taxes. That's the way the government here looks at us. You're a tax provider. You're an asset. You don't laugh. That's what we are in the eyes of them.
That's because they didn't have Miami back then, Rabbi.
That's because they didn't have Miami. Here you go. And look at what's going on right now. I'm saying all the Yidden should be protected. But a non-Jew would think that after you live in a city where it's getting bombarded the whole time, that people would leave. We're the only people in the world that everyone is trying to go there now. You don't find this in any other people because that's our place. Okay, the Gemara says weiter. Says the Gemara Tani, we learned in a Braisa. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Oimer. This is so interesting, guys. Hafach ba v'hafach ba d'chaylu ba. Mamish, everything is in the Torah. That, how do you know where the highlands begin? Lowlands. How do you define that? So if you want to know, if you have a question mark whether you are already in the mountains, a siman, a hallmark that you are in the mountains, is that you have millen trees. Millen trees are walnut trees. These are species of trees that flourish in a mountain terrain. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't plant millen in lowlands. But by nature, wherever you live, you'll notice that, when you go up, I know here in La Havdil from Eretz Yisrael to here, but here in California, when you start going up the mountains, in many areas, there's pine trees. Right? When you come to the lowlands, you have palm trees. A different topography, different. So when these trees are already here. You're a certain height above the ground. So these trees, millen, walnut trees, they grow naturally on the highlands. La'amakim. What's the hallmark of an emek? Emek is a valley. Is tamar, date palms. When you're mamish in the valley, that's what you have. Lenechalim, the hallmark of rivers or the area of rivers is kanim reeds. Reeds, it's around rivers. Now, what about shfela? Different. Emek is the valley. Shfela is lowlands. Shikmim, sycamores. And va'afal pi she'ein raya l'davar. Even though a raya, we don't care how it is beteva. That's a yid. Everything has to be in Torah. If you want to know for sure, you have to find it somewhere in Tanakh. So we didn't find a proof, but we have a zecher. And what's the zecher? So here again, he brings the Torah Rashon. He brings a pasuk from Divrei Hayamim, and the pasuk begins Vayiten Hamelach es Hakesef es Hazov Yerushalmi Ha'avonim ve'esu arozim nasim kashikmin asher bashfela lo roiv. Here we go. So here you see over here that that shikmin are found in abundance in the shvela, sycamore trees. Guys, don't confuse this with sequoia. I got confused and I was preparing yesterday because last year I went to sequoia over here. Sequoia is very high up. You have giant trees over here that were there during the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Still, these trees are standing for thousands of years. Mamish, sequoia lechud sycamore took me a while, but what we're saying, and not that it bothered me. But the ikir is the Torah says that sycamore trees are found l'roiv where bashvela. Turning to the ayin gimel amid beis is the boy meimar. Why did the Braisa have to tell us about these simanim, about these hallmarks? Lemidas hadin itmar. No, there is an afkamina ledin. This is fascinating. What does that mean? Look inside the Tapnei Moshe. That lemidas the hanafkamina le'ingadin. For example, it gives an example of the other mekachomemkar, which means that if one tells the other, if Reuven tells Shimon that I am selling you mountains, I'm making a mountain sale. That has to be on the mountains, Milan. Even though he never told him, I'm selling you mountains with the walnut trees. It comes with it. If I sell you the valley, it has to be dates. So that's called the Inyan Adin. No, that it wasn't regarding a sale. These are very detailed dinim. That if I tell you I'm selling you a mountain, even though we said that's right, the hallmark of mountains are walnut trees, it doesn't mean that there has to be walnut trees on the mountains. If the mountain is a mountain, the sale is valid. You cannot claim that I tricked you. But why did the Braisa give this din specifically for le'egla arufa itmar, as the Pnei Moshe tells us that we have at the end of Parsha Shoftim, right? That we have to decapitate the egla banachal by a nachal eson. So what nachal is qualified to have the egla decapitated if there are reeds by the nachal? So it's not, in other words, when it comes to mekach memkar, there's a big difference. When it comes to mekach memkar, there we can say halech achar loshen b'nei adam. I'm saying this because we're learning now in Rambam, Nedarim, and Nezirus. I'm going from one topic to the other, but still, when it comes to a sale, if in this location, when we speak about selling mountains, if all it means is the mountain without the trees, then it's the trees don't have to be included. In other words, what people understand with the word is very significant when it comes to sales between the Adam lachaveiroi. Why does the Braisa give us the hallmarks for Dinei Torah? That's something else. When Hashem says nachal eson, that means a nachal that has reeds, because the hallmark of a nachalim are reeds. Okay. So let's begin now breaking down the Mishnah. The Mishnah mentioned the first three sublands of the Galil, like we said, was Galil ha'elyon, Galil ha'tachtein, and if I'm not mistaken, Chelik Asher, I think it's in the Galil ha'elyon. Where's Asher? Who knows that? Find a map somewhere, Kevin. If I could, I would buy a property over there in the Galil ha'elyon. Problem is, what happens if we're not from Shevet Asher? That's the concern. Whoever buys something in Yerushalmi, you're good, because Yerushalmi, ultimately, we say, is not divided amongst the tribes. So no one is kicking you out of Yerushalmi, no matter what tribe you belong to. People that buy land pre-Mashiach somewhere, if they could, we'll find out. We can swap it, but it's a whole different experience. Oh, very good. Asher. See, I know. Asher Naftali. No. Yeah. Where's the Kinneret? Where is the Kinneret? Yeah, I'm saying good. That's what it is. Yeah. Maybe Dan. I like Dan also over there by the Hermon. A lot of greenery and few people. Let's go. The Iker is that. So let's go. Go and go. Tachna Emek. So says the Gemara. So we're different gersois. So when the Mishnah says so Emek, says the Gemara, what's the Emek? In other words, the irony was, let's go back. The Mishnah gave you the boundaries of Galil Elyon. The Mishnah gave you the boundaries of the Galil Tachten. And where's the Emek? So Ezo, Emek, Ba Galil, what's called the valley? The valley is Bikas Genoiser v'Chabroisel. Guys, Bikas Genoiser is right. I don't think it's on this map. It's not on this map. It's not on this map. This map that you're showing is for the next piece of the Gemara. Genoiser, where Genoiser is today, Genoiser is the northern part of the Kinneret. North of the Kinneret. That's where Genoiser is. And v'chein kol kayotze behem. I think kayotze behem means that if it's as deep in the ground as the height of Bikas Genoisar, that's called the valley of the Galil. That's the third subland in the Galil. Then the Mishnah spoke about Yehuda.
Did we learn once about figs of Genoiser or something like that?
Peres Genoiser, that is remembering that there was extraordinary fruits that used to grow over there with tremendous quantities. that had tremendous amounts of sweetness. And when it comes to eating sweets, ein lo davar soif, you can eat and eat and eat and eat these huge fruits and still have room for more sweets. Kimin hagenu in America. Okay, now the words by the Galil was Elyon, Tachtoin, and Emek. By Yehuda, the words are Har, Shvela, and Emek. And you should know that Har, Shvela, and Emek, that's the general way that we describe three types of topographies. Highlands, like the mountains over there, Malibu. Then you have the ones that are nearer the beach. Then you have the Emek. Lahavdil, in holy in Eretz Yisrael. So let's go. So first of all, Eizu Har Shabi Yehuda. Whenever we speak about a mountainous, that's what I said in the intro, guys. There's Har HaMelech. Danny, we learned Har HaMelech in the story of the Churban, right? Har HaMelech had 600,000 cities, I think. And every city had Kiyotz Mitzrayim, and 3 had Kiflayim, Eretz Tzvi, that it was huge. But if you can put up a map of Yerushalmi, okay, but not the maps of the Art Scroll, there is a series of mountains, you have to look at it that way, that surround Yerushalmi. That region, Yerushalayim is God's palace, is God's home, God's seat, the city of Yerushalayim. And it's Ke'ilu, those mountains are protecting Yerushalayim. All of them could be called the mountains of the king. That's a region, but there is amongst all of the many mountains around Yerushalayim, one that is taller than the rest. I don't know what that mountain is. I don't know if today there's a place called Har HaMelech. I don't know. But in Chazal, that's what the Gemara wants to say. That when we speak about the Har Shabi Yehuda, we are referring to Har HaMelech. You can't see it from the map that you're putting up. I'm talking about heights. Like Mevaseret Zion. It could be it's even bigger than Yerushalayim. If you are, I mean, that's the one city that I mean, when you go there, you say, well, I wish I can have a house there. Shkoyach. It's beautiful, right? And there overlooks. But to go walk from there to the Beis Hamikdash is yena walk. For that, you go to the Cohens. You're much better off. Now, anyways, Hadamel Ushvei what is considered the lowland? Shuffle doesn't mean like the Emek. So that goes to Shveilas Doroim. It's a region. I don't know what this refers to, and I'm going weiter that in the Mishnah the whole Negev is l'chura part of Yehuda. You also have a lot of mountains there. It's not flat, but it's not called Har HaMelech. And what's the Emek? The Emek is from Ein Gedi till Yerichai. And we know that because Ein Gedi till Yerichai, all of the Bachram, we go over there somehow. That's because it's mamish by the Yam HaMelech. I'm saying it's where you're mamish flat. The lowest part is called the Emek. And those are the three territories of Yehuda. And now, what the Gemara points out is that if you go back to the Mishnah, so the Mishnah gave you the three sublands in Yehuda, the Mishnah in Galul, then the Mishnah gave you the three sublands in Yehuda, then the Mishnah spoke out the Machlokes Tanakama and Rab Shimon, however you want to learn it, and the Mishnah almost like skipped Ever Layardin. And the Gemara is basically saying that there's no need to go through the Ever Layardin because we're using the same template that the Mishnah gave of Yehuda, which is Har, Shvela, Emek, highlands, lowlands, valley. That's what we do to the Ever Hayardin. So that's what the Gemara has to do now. And for that, you have a good map. Whoever has an art scroll on 73b2, look at the map. That's a great map because we didn't have this in the Mishnah. What area is the Har of Ever Hayardin? So we learned in Abraisa Tani, Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omer, keep going. You have to know these locations. Harei, Machvar, Ugedoir. These mountains, I just want you to know, are located right east of the Jordan River. We're speaking about the areas where Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven and Chatzi Shevet Menashe settled. This is important. So it's not only there. These were the ones that were most known by the Tanoim. But if there are any other area, Me'ever Layarden, that has the same type of topography, and I'm speaking about height, like Machvar Ugedoir, they are considered the subland of the Har Shebe'ever Layarden. What will be an example of the lowlands in the Ever Yarden? So he's quoting from a pasuk in Yeshua, the city of Cheshbon, that we also happen to have in the Torah, right? Bo v'nase Cheshbon, v'cholorel, b'mishoir, divoin, ubamois, baal, ubeis baal ma'oin, v'chein kol kayotzeba. And what's the emek of the Ever Yarden? Beis Haram and Beis Nimra, v'chein kayotzeba. And again a pasuk in Yeshua, ube'emek beferish. Beis Haram, Ubeis Nimra, Vesukais, Vitzafoin, Yeser Mamluchai Sichain, Melech Hamed Yasher Becheshbain. Now, this is a very important pasuk. I'll tell you why it's a very important pasuk. Because in Ever Layarden, guys, remember, we went through this in Masechta Shvius when we were learning about all of the boundaries of the Holy Land. So there were lands that originally belonged to Ammon and Moav. We have a decree from the Eibishter that until the coming of Mashiach, we're not allowed to conquer their lands. What happened? This is in the Chumash. That came along Sichon and Og. They waged war against Ammon and Moav. Some of the territories of Ammon and Moav they conquered. Now it became the lands of Sichon and Og. We were allowed to conquer the lands of Sichon and Og, and that was part of the conquest of Moshe Rabbeinu over there, Me'ever LaYarden. And if you remember what we learned when we were learning about Oile Mitzrayim and Oile Bavel, so I want you to know like this, that even Oile Bavel resettled on those lands, it's amazing, that were part of Ammon and Moav. Not all of what Moshe Rabbeinu conquered, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't only conquer the parts of the lands that used to be from Ammon and Moav. Moshe Rabbeinu conquered the whole land of Sichon, the whole land of Og. But and that was settled by Oile Mitzrayim, that was settled by Bnei Reuven and Gad Chatzas Shevet Menashe. By Oile Bavel, that's what this is referring to. Some of the lands, and ironically, which of the lands did we resettle? Those lands that Taka were from Sichon, from Ammon and Moav. In other words, the wars in the world happen ultimately for the benefit of the Eden. That's the whole make a cheshbon, bo v'nase cheshbon shel olam. Beis Haram, the Gemara, let's go weiter. Beis Haram, Beis Ramasa. So you have to know what they are. So the names changed a little bit. So when it says in Scripture Beis Nimra, so in the times when the Tanoim were speaking about, by then it was called Beis Nimrin. So they're saying that's the one that we have. Sukkos, the Torah calls it Sukkos, the pasuk in Yeshua Nach. So they called it now Dar Allah. Curious to know, people who know Jordan, they probably know exactly where it is, Dar Allah. And Safain is now meaning now in the times of the Tanoim was called Amsu. Let's go weiter. Now that we said that both in Yehuda and the Ever LaYarden, we are dividing land into highlands, lowlands, and the valley. Very simple. What happens if you are in the highland area and there is a big dip in the ground? What happens if you are in the lowlands area and punkt over there you have a mountain that goes up? So we don't look at every inch specifically. The area of the highlands, even if in it there's something lower, it's classified as the highlands. That's the meaning. Shvela Shabahar is still considered the area of the Har. And the same thing in reverse, that if you happen to be in the Shvela, but in the Shvela region, you have a psashtikal mountain that protrudes upwards. We don't view that mountain as another, it's not, if you are above 3,000 feet, you are in the highlands. Under, we don't say that. We look at regions. Hashem made regions. If you are in the mountainous region, whether you are, even if in there there's something relatively low, it's still called a har, and the reverse. How do I know that? Minman detani, from that which it says in a Braisa. And that's these, listen to the words. Har v'haroi, emek v'imkoi, shevel u'shvelasoi. What does that mean? It means just what we said. Har v'haroi means that if you are in the hard area, ironically, you don't have to be on a high peak. Shvela shabahar bahar. And the same thing in reverse. If you are in the Shvela area, mountain in the Shvela is Keshvela. And let's hop one more line. Amar Rabbi Yosi, that is even known from our Mishnah. Masnisa Amar Kain. Because since our Mishnah writes that the Hahar Shalak Haramelech, which is from Beis Choyden Va'ad Hayom, is called Medina Achas, it's called one single land. And the area of Haramelech doesn't only include physical places that are very high. It's a region. Any part in that region, even the shvela in that region, is called Har HaMelech. Gewaldig. So we know it from our Mishnah. What I want to say is, just going back to the beginning. So we spoke about the Nefesh HaBahamas, that we're not meant, the animal stays to its neighborhood. My animal, I should make, don't sin. But the biggest sin is to introduce new sins, that it's not even in my nature, because I have enough stuff to deal with in my nature. In the region of my behema, even if I have a har behema, in my mountain, there's a shvela. So let's say a person thinks that their yetzer hara is to be arrogant. I mean, that's what we're talking about, har. They should know that every now and then they'll have to deal with depression. There's shvela, the guy that always walks around confident, and his issue is he's a gaivadik. He also has to deal with Marash Chayra. The guy that's in the Eime Kabacha, every now and then he's the biggest Balgaiva. You don't have to go to new regions to find your behema can be in the place of our Nefesh HaBahamas. We have all these three types. I even was thinking before, again, the Har, L'chayra is Gaiva and pride. That was my thing, that the lowlands is Taivas and passions. Because it's near the water. And the valley is depression and guilt and fear, the ones that put you down. Let's deal with that and not introduce new Yetzer Haras. And we should.
If you go to the valley, you do get depression.
So we have all of them. That's what you're saying.
We have all of them without venturing outwards. Yes.
Valley depression. Remember that.